Welcome back to the Deep Dive, brought to you exclusively on Book on a Shelf. Today, we are launching into a discussion that, it really defines Western tragedy, William Shakespeare's Hamlet.
And we're not just going to summarize the plot here. What we really want to do is use the deep structural and textual insights from the Folger Shakespeare Library.
Exactly. We want to excavate the raw political corruption, the psychological turmoil, and that existential paralysis is just woven into these first four acts.
It's so essential to treat this text not just as a play, but as a blueprint for a functioning yet profoundly sick political state. Our mission is to give you that shortcut.
The most critical nuggets of knowledge.
Yes, to really understand the chaos in Elsinore. This deep dive is going to focus on the machinery of revenge, surveillance, and of course that fatal procrastination.
And these themes are never stale. The struggle of deciding when to act, or even if you should act, on information that seems just too enormous to handle.
That's our world right now.
It's the very definition of modern existence. Hamlet is a 400-year-old geopolitical thriller about profound distrust and information overload.
So let's start with the foundation of this tragedy. The play doesn't begin in a vacuum. It begins with this almost unbelievable state trauma that's established just before the curtain even rises.
Right. The entire tragedy really hinges on the sheer, almost indecent haste surrounding the death of King Hamlet and the rise of Claudius.
Precisely. The sudden, let's call it unnatural, death of the elder king sets the stage, but the real catalyst is Queen Gertrude's actions right after. The sources are definitive about the timeline here.
Within a month.
Within a month of her husband's death, Gertrude marries his brother, Claudius.
That speed is just astonishing. It challenges not only social norms about mourning, but also the politics of succession. This, or hasty marriage, as the texts call it, is the source of Prince Hamlet's initial trauma and that deep sense of disgust.
Yes, it suggests a betrayal that predates any ghost's revelation. And Claudius manages to consolidate the crown almost immediately, while he frames this transition in Act 1, Scene 2 as, necessary, prudent governance.
He's taking his sometime sister, now our queen, to wife.
Exactly. But the effect is politically destabilizing and psychologically devastating to the prince. It's basically a coup, achieved through expediency and some very clever political rhetoric. It sets that initial tone of moral corruption that infects the entire kingdom.
So the opening scene, Act 1, Scene 1, is immediately gripping. We're on the ramparts of Elsinore with the guards, and the mood is just thick with dread.
It is.
We get these details about physical discomfort. The air is bitter cold. The guards are tense. They're exhausted. It's a world that's not just politically unstable, but physically hostile.
And that discomfort, it reflects the state of Denmark itself. We see guards like Francisco, who says he's sick at heart. That instantly conveys a mood of national anxiety.
And what makes it all worse is this supernatural intrusion.
The ghost of the late King Hamlet has already appeared, terrifying the soldiers.
Which is why they bring in Horatio, the scholar. They need someone skeptical to verify what they can barely believe themselves.
And Horatio, who at first just dismisses it as fantasy, he's immediately forced to confront the truth when the ghost appears again, wearing the full armor of the late king.
Wow.
And Horatio, who is meant to be this voice of Renaissance reason and enlightenment, he's rendered speechless. He has to concede, admitting the sight harries me with fear and wonder.
Okay, so why is the armor so important? If it were just a spirit-seeking piece, it wouldn't be dressed for battle, right?
That is the critical nugget of insight here. The ghost appearing armed explicitly ties this supernatural event to the current national security threat.
Oh, okay.
It evokes the powerful military figure of the king who fought the ambitious Norway. This isn't just a familial haunting, it is a political omen.
Okay, so let's unpack that political context through Horatio's explanation, which is something people often skim over, but it's so vital. Horatio explains these frantic military preparations.
Yes, Denmark is operating under maximum military alert. You hear about the round-the-clock casting of cannons, the foreign markets importing weapons.
The shipwrights working 7 days a week.
Exactly. They don't even observe the Sabbath. And why? Because of young Fortinbras.
Fortinbras, he's often seen as this sort of secondary character, but he's really the external reflection of Hamlet's internal conflict. He's seeking to recover lands his father lost.
And this is where the legal and diplomatic structure of the play is so important. The elder Fortinbras was killed by the elder King Hamlet in a one-on-one duel, Crucially, the loss of those territories was codified. It was internationally recognized.
It was a sealed compact, well ratified by law and heraldry.
It was an agreed-upon legal contract.
So young Fortinbras isn't just an aggressor in his own mind. He's trying to reclaim what he feels is rightfully his, even if he has to use force.
Precisely. He's raising an army of lawless resolute mercenaries, basically gathered by strong hand and terms compulsory, to get those lands back. And Horatio identifies this as the main motive of our preparations.
So here's the aha moment.
Yes. The ghost's armed presence is not a coincidence. It bodes some strange eruption to our state. The state is rotten from within with Claudius's murder, and it's being challenged from without by Fortinbras's invasion threat.
And you have to contrast that icy militaristic tension on the ramparts with the warmth and, the calculated rhetoric of Claudius's court in the very next scene, Act 1, Scene 2.
Oh, he is a master of political spin. His opening speech is a masterpiece of normalization. He's trying to reconcile the irreconcilable.
He explicitly addresses the court, weaving together mirth in funeral and with dirge in marriage.
He acknowledges the necessary grief, but then immediately argues for pragmatism and efficiency in moving forward, and that's how he justifies his quick marriage to Gertrude. He's trying to make the whole political transition look smooth, despite the inherent moral shock.
Right, and his first official act of business is a diplomatic triumph, or at least a very calculated risk regarding Fortinbras.
Instead of preparing for direct conflict, Claudius dispatches Cornelius and Voltiman to Old Norway. This is a shrewd move. He's going over the nephew's head to appeal to the impotent and bedrid uncle, the official authority figure.
So he's hoping Old Norway can suppress his nephew's unauthorized military action.
It shows Claudius prefers bureaucratic manipulation over open warfare. It really highlights his calculating nature. And in that same court session, we see him granting favors.
Specifically to Laertes.
Yes, Laertes, son of the chief counselor Polonius, gets permission to return to France. It confirms he's valued by the new regime. But the request of the legitimate heir, Prince Hamlet, is treated completely differently.
Hamlet wants to go back to school, to the university in Wittenberg, a place of reason, far from the corruption of Elsinore.
And Claudius denies the request immediately. This isn't just paternal concern, it's pure politics. He wants to keep Hamlet close under the cheer and comfort of our eye.
He's too dangerous to let leave.
Exactly. Hamlet could become a figurehead for rebellion abroad. He is effectively a prisoner in his own court.
And once that court departs, we finally get to hear the true, unfiltered voice of Hamlet in his first soliloquy. And it's just this rapid descent into absolute despair.
It's the sound of an existential crisis. He wishes his too sullied flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. But he's constrained by, religion, the knowledge that the eternal has fixed a canon against self-slaughter.
He calls the world an unweeded garden,
where things run wild and rotten because the hand of order, his father, is gone.
And the root of all this misery, as we said, is the unnatural speed of his mother's marriage, which he finds deeply incestuous because Claudius is his uncle.
His emotional pain is just rooted in this contrast. He elevates his dead father, comparing him to the sun god Hyperion, while Claudius is nothing more than a grotesque, lustful satyr.
And the devotion Gertrude once showed King Hamlet that she would hang on him, it just makes her sudden abandonment feel like a cosmic violation.
It really does.
And the sources emphasize the speed so vividly, using that famous image about the timing of the feasts.
The marriage happened so fast that the funeral baked meats did coldly furnish forth the marriage tables. It implies they barely bothered to let the funeral food cool before repurposing it for the wedding.
It's disgusting.
It is. The moral quickness, the lack of propriety, it just shatters Hamlet's worldview and leads to that generalized misogynistic indictment, frailty, thy name is woman.
And it's only after this soliloquy, when Hamlet is at his most cynical and isolated, that Horatio brings him the news of the ghost.
And this is the critical shift. Before this, Hamlet could only suspect foul play. But now he has a concrete, if terrifying, avenue for action. When the ghost finally appears to him in Act 1, Scene 5, the true nightmare is confirmed.
The ghost identifies himself as King Hamlet's spirit and immediately demands revenge, cementing the idea that Claudius is an incestuous, that adulterate beast.
And he reveals that Claudius won Gertrude through wicked wit and gifts, confirming the quick marriage was built on premeditated seduction and betrayal. The political coup was inseparable from the moral corruption.
And the specifics of the murder are gruesome. It corrects the official lie that a serpent stung the king while he was sleeping in the orchard.
The murder was clandestine and cruel. Claudius poured the juice of cursed Hibona into the king's ear, and the source material details the immediate, horrifying physical effect of that poison.
It says it doth posset and curd, like eager droppings into milk, the thin and wholesome blood.
Yes, his skin instantly crusted over, giving him a Lazar-like appearance. It's horrific.
But beyond the physical horror, there's the theological horror, which is maybe the most motivating factor for the ghost. The king was cut off even in the blossoms of my sin.
This is a moment of profound medieval theology crashing right into the Renaissance world. Being cut off suddenly means he died unhoused, disappointed, unanaled.
So without confession, without last rites, without any chance to cleanse his soul.
Exactly. Which means the ghost is now suffering, confined to fast and fires, till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away.
This theological catastrophe is what forces Hamlet into this desperate act of revenge. It's not just about justice on earth, it's about eternal salvation for his father.
The crime is made exponentially worse because it robbed the victim of his chance for grace.
And the ghost gives Hamlet one mandatory, non-negotiable instruction regarding Gertrude.
Yes. Despite her betrayal, Hamlet is explicitly forbidden from harming her. Taint not thy mind, nor let thy soul contrive against thy mother aught. Leave her to heaven.
Right.
The ghost recognizes that her punishment should come from God and her own conscience, the thorns that in her bosom lodge.
Hamlet's reaction is just total, dramatic dedication. He vows to wipe away all trivial fond records from his memory. Everything else must be erased so that the ghost's command, adieu, adieu, remember me, is the only thing that shall live in his brain.
The mission is set. It requires total focus.
But while Hamlet is internalizing this cosmic mission, the court, led by Polonius, is actively establishing a culture of deep paranoia and manipulation.
Through relentless surveillance, Polonius is the engine of distrust in Denmark.
He's the chief politician who believes life is a game of strategic appearances. And we see this first when he says farewell to Laertes in Act 1, Scene 3.
The departure for France becomes an excuse for this long, famous lecture.
And most of his advice is about social positioning, not genuine morality. He tells Laertes, give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. It's all about careful listening and self-control to maintain your appearance.
It culminates in that most famous line, this, above all, to thine own self be true. But coming from Polonius, this line isn't about authenticity.
No.
It's about consistency, maintaining a reputation that will serve your self-interest. It's advice rooted in a kind of calculating worldliness, not high morality.
And at the same time, Laertes is already warning Ophelia about Hamlet, treating their relationship as a political liability.
He insists Hamlet's expressions of love are just a temporary toy in blood because Hamlet's will is not his own. As the heir on his choice depends the safety and the health of this whole state.
So marriage is a state function, not a romantic choice.
And Polonius reinforces this control, immediately ordering her not to see Hamlet again, an instruction Ophelia immediately and obediently accepts. And this act of obedience sets her up as an unwitting instrument of the state's surveillance.
And Polonius' obsession with control quickly turns sinister. In Act 2, Scene 1, he sends his servant Reynaldo to Paris, supposedly with money.
But primarily as a spy, to report on his own son.
This reveals Polonius' nature as a totally paranoid and obsessive manipulator. He instructs Reynaldo on this notoriously complex strategy he calls the bait of falsehood.
Reynaldo is told to approach Danish acquaintances in Paris and suggests, casually, that Laertes might be involved in some slight dissolute behavior, gaming or drinking, fencing, swearing.
But nothing too serious.
Nothing that would genuinely dishonor him, like incontinency. The subtle slander is the trap.
So why the gentle slander? What's the logic?
The logic is brilliant and Machiavellian. By lying gently, Polonius hopes to trick others into confirming or correcting the rumor, and that's how he'll find out what Laertes is actually doing.
Through gossip.
Exactly. Polonius spells out the method. By indirections, find directions out. He doesn't trust direct reports. He trusts information derived from manipulation. This scene establishes that espionage is the default mode of operation in Claudius's court.
And into this highly monitored environment, Ophelia rushes in, disturbed, and she gives us the first description of Hamlet's self-imposed madness.
She describes his state as intensely theatrical and desperate, unbraced, pale, ungartered, and looking at her as if he had been loosed out of hell. The visual impression is of a man physically unraveling.
But Polonius immediately ignores the obvious signs of psychic distress and jumps to the conclusion that serves his own ego.
He instantly concludes Hamlet is mad for thy love. He believes the madness stems entirely from Ophelia's dutiful rejection of him following his own orders.
He's so consumed by his own manipulative power.
That he believes Hamlet's madness is just an understandable consequence of his daughter's obedience. He even apologizes to Ophelia, lamenting that he feared he did but trifle, when in fact he has misjudged the entire situation.
His arrogance is his blind spot.
It is. He rushes off immediately to tell the king and queen, confident that he has found the very cause of Hamlet's lunacy. And this wrong diagnosis, based on surveillance and control, becomes the justification for the next phase of the court's conspiracy.
So Polonius's claim that rejected love is the cause prompts Claudius to bring in, let's call them heavier surveillance assets.
Sure.
In Act 2, Scene 2, we meet Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
And Claudius and Gertrude explicitly recruit these two, Hamlet's boyhood friends, to spy on him and discover the true source of his transformation. The use of close friends is designed to elicit information organically.
It's betrayal cloaked as friendship.
It is, but Hamlet's supposed madness is sharp enough to cut right through their false sincerity. He sees them immediately as agents of the crown.
He wastes no time, does he? He asks them directly if they were sent for.
And under pressure, Guildenstern confirms, "My lord, we were sent for." This immediate recognition of betrayal further isolates Hamlet, fueling his cynicism and his intellectual contempt.
This isolation leads to Hamlet's famous meditation on his environment and spirit. He critiques Denmark as a prison and laments his profound lack of joy, stating he has lost all my mirth.
And this spirals into one of the most intellectually dizzying speeches in the entire play, the philosophical praise of humanity, immediately followed by its brutal dismissal.
Let's just linger on that for a moment. He paints this glorious picture of mankind.
He describes humanity as a piece of work, praising our noble reason, our infinite faculties, suggesting we are like an angel in action and like a god in apprehension. He calls man the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. It's pure Renaissance humanism.
But then he delivers the crushing nihilistic reversal.
He asks, and yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me, no, nor women neither. The speech is brilliant because it shows that Hamlet possesses the intellectual capacity to appreciate the glory of a universe, yet his personal trauma and political disgust have rendered all that glory meaningless.
It's an intellectual defense mechanism. It allows him to appear mad while retaining his profound philosophical clarity.
Absolutely, and his intellect continues to shine when he taunts Polonius during their meeting, escalating his feigned madness.
He calls him a fishmonger.
Which could imply a pimp, connecting back to Hamlet's ongoing disgust with sexual corruption. And he offers this unsettling advice about Ophelia, telling Polonius to keep her out in the sun, subtly suggesting Claudius might try to impregnate her or that she might otherwise be ruined.
It's calculatedly offensive.
And destabilizing. But even Polonius, the master manipulator, has a moment of genuine insight here, doesn't he?
He does.
Yes. Despite misdiagnosing the cause, Polonius observes, though this be madness, yet there is method in it. He recognizes that Hamlet's seemingly erratic behavior is structured and intentional, containing flashes of uncomfortable truth. The irony is that the method is directed squarely against Polonius and his king.
The arrival of the traveling actors is what changes Hamlet's trajectory from philosophical contemplation to active conspiracy.
The players are Hamlet's lifeline because they represent the power of simulated truth. He engages in this deep discussion about contemporary theatrical trends, specifically mentioning the rise of the array of child actors who are displacing adult players in London.
It shows us he's deeply attuned to popular culture and the arts.
It does, but the crucial moment is when he requests a specific performance focusing on Priam's slaughter.
This is where he transitions from a passive observer to an active director.
He's shamed by the actor who can conjure such profound emotion weeping for the fictional Hecuba, while Hamlet, with a dead father and a mission from God, stands silent. He condemns himself as a dull and muddy-mettled rascal.
He needs grounds more relative than this, meaning more concrete evidence than the word of a questionable ghost.
And the actor's tears give him the idea for the ultimate psychological weapon. If art can move an actor so deeply, it can surely shock a guilty conscience into revealing itself. The play is the solution.
Which gives us that iconic line, "The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king." The entire play becomes a sophisticated trap.
And as we move into Act 3, the stage is set for that confrontation. Claudius and Polonius, driven by Polonius's mistaken theory, set their trap first. positioning Ophelia to encounter Hamlet while they hide as lawful espials.
The atmosphere of surveillance is just constant.
And this premeditated espionage is the immediate backdrop for Hamlet's most profound philosophical query, the to be or not to be soliloquy.
It's the ultimate meditation on action versus inaction, life versus death. He questions whether it's nobler to passively suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune or to actively fight back by ending one's life.
But Hamlet's core deterrence isn't morality or law, it's the unknown nature of the afterlife.
He worries about the dreams that may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil.
That is the fear of the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns. The terror of the theological unknown, the fear of what may await him beyond death, is what makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of.
This cosmic fear is what generates his paralysis, the intellectual's dilemma.
And it's what keeps him alive to seek revenge, even if sluggishly. And this philosophical despair immediately pours into that notorious nunnery scene with Ophelia.
This is where the psychological violence really reaches its peak. Hamlet, and he's likely aware he is being watched, turns his pain and general misogyny into a vicious attack on Ophelia and all womankind.
He denies he ever loved her and commands her, "Get thee to a nunnery."
And the dual meaning of nunnery, either a convent or a brothel, makes his attack profoundly damning. It suggests that whether she lives virtuously or not, she'll be corrupted by the inevitable frailty of her sex.
He critiques her use of cosmetics, saying, "I have heard of your paintings. God hath given you one face, and you make yourselves another." He projects his disgust with his mother and the court's pretense directly onto Ophelia.
The outcome of this surveillance moment is key, though. Ophelia is left heartbroken, and Claudius is convinced that Polonius was wrong.
Claudius observes the rage and the lack of reference to lost love, concluding instantly that Hamlet's erratic behavior is not caused by love. He even states there's something in his soul, or which his melancholy sits on brood.
The king recognizes a genuine concealed menace, not just lovesickness.
And he makes an immediate lethal decision. He shall with speed to England, which sets the clock ticking on Hamlet's life.
So next we see Hamlet stage his definitive test, the mousetrap, in Act 3, Scene 2. But before the play even begins, Hamlet offers these timeless instructions to the players.
He's obsessed with realism because the trap requires precision. He insists they must hold, as 'twere, the mirror up to nature, ensuring the performance is so realistic that Claudius cannot mistake the content.
He also trusts Horatio implicitly, asking him to serve as a co-investigator.
This is proof of Horatio's integrity. Hamlet asks him to observe Claudius carefully. Mine eyes will rivet to his face, and after, we will both our judgments join in censure of his seeming.
They need a corroborated witness.
They do. The play itself, The Murder of Gonzago, opens with a dumb show, then dialogue, directly mimicking the murder of King Hamlet.
The parallels are meant to be inescapable. When the player queen declares, "None wed the second, but who killed the first," Hamlet ensures the king hears the barb shouting, "That's wormwood."
Meaning bitter and painful. It's psychological warfare conducted in public.
And the climax arrives when Lucianus, the nephew in the play, pours the poison into the sleeping king's ear.
And Claudius snaps. He cannot endure the mirroring truth of his crime. He leaps up, stops the play, cries, "Give me some light, away," and rushes out. For Hamlet, this is total victory.
He immediately turns to Horatio. "Oh, good Horatio, I'll take the ghost's word for £1,000.
The ghost's word has been proved true. And Hamlet finally has the concrete grounds he needed for revenge.
With Claudius's guilt confirmed, we arrive at the catastrophic turning point of the play, the prayer scene in Act 3, Scene 3. The events here define the rest of the tragedy.
They do. Claudius, rattled by the play, orders Hamlet to England and then attempts to find solace alone. And his confession is one of the most remarkable moments in the play because it reveals his genuine, agonizing remorse.
He acknowledges the enormity of his crime. "Oh, my offense is rank. It smells to heaven. It have the primal eldest curse upon it, a brother's murder."
That's a direct reference to Cain and Abel, the foundational sin of fraternity. He attempts to pray, to confess, but he admits his prayer is a failure.
Why is that?
The central dilemma of his soul is that he can't truly repent because he refuses to surrender the rewards of his crime. He still possesses the effects of the murder. My crown, mine own ambition, and my queen.
He asks, "May one be pardoned and retain the offense?"
He knows that earthly justice can be bought, but heaven is different. He is spiritually paralyzed.
So he's glued to his spoils, literally kneeling in a posture of penitence, but unable to sincerely confess. And this is the exact moment Hamlet walks in, sword drawn.
It is the ultimate missed opportunity. Hamlet finds Claudius undefended, kneeling, apparently purging his soul. Killing him now would be easy. But Hamlet delays, making a decision rooted in a deeply medieval, brutal theological calculation.
And what exactly is that calculation?
He reasons that killing Claudius while he's engaged in prayer might send his soul straight to heaven. And for Hamlet, that is not revenge, it's rewarding the villain.
His father died even in the blossoms of my sin, unconfessed and damned. For true revenge, Claudius must also die without grace.
Hamlet's thirst is not merely for justice, but for damnation. He resolves to wait for a more horrid hint, a more opportune, wicked moment. He vows to kill Claudius when the king is drunk, or in a rage, or in bed with his mother.
Any act that has no relish of salvation in it.
To ensure Claudius' soul will be as damned and black as hell, whereto it goes.
And the irony is just devastating. Claudius immediately rises and confirms, "My words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go."
The prayer was meaningless anyway. Hamlet's complex, intellectual desire for perfect damnation blinds him to the simple, pragmatic opportunity for justice. He misses the chance, and the direct, immediate consequence is the death of Polonius in the very next scene.
The closet scene. Act 3, Scene 4. This is the immediate fallout. Polonius, fulfilling his role as the chief intelligence officer, hides behind the tapestry, the arras, to eavesdrop on Hamlet's conversation with Gertrude.
It's a fatal move. Hamlet's entrance is aggressive. It alarms Gertrude, who cries out for help. Polonius echoes her cry from behind the arras, and Hamlet acts on reflex, mistaking the stirring figure for the king.
He uses the language of contempt, even as he commits homicide. A rat, dead for a ducat, dead. And he stabs Polonius through the tapestry.
The man who lived by indirection and surveillance dies instantly because of it. Polonius is the first victim of Hamlet's rash action, driven by the frustration and rage from that delay. Hamlet then drags out the body, realizes his mistake, but immediately pivots to verbally assaulting his mother.
He conducts a brutal verbal intervention, holding up two portraits: the noble, Jove-like King Hamlet and the grotesque, cursed Claudius, whom he calls a mildewed ear and a king of shreds and patches.
He's trying to force Gertrude to see the moral abyss she's fallen into, demanding she repents. He's trying to cleanse her soul, even while having just damned his own by committing murder.
And in the middle of this intense, harrowing confrontation, the ghost reappears.
Crucially, this time the ghost is invisible to Gertrude. She only sees Hamlet addressing the incorporeal heir, reinforcing her belief that he is mad.
And heightening the drama for us.
Yes. The ghost is there only to whet thy almost blunted purpose, to remind Hamlet that his primary objective is Claudius, and to recall his vow not to harm his mother.
The ghost ensures Hamlet redirects his violence. Gertrude is forced to confront the black ingrained spots in her soul, and in a moment of renewed trust, Hamlet confides in her about Claudius's plot to ship him to England.
Hamlet shares his profound suspicion that the journey is a deadly setup, describing Rosencrantz and Guildenstern as companions he will trust as I will, adders fanged. He is prepared to use his wit and violence to counter the plot, resolving to blow them at the moon.
To hoist them with her own petard.
Exactly, and he leaves, dragging Polonius's body behind him.
So Act 4 immediately demonstrates the political fallout of Polonius's murder. Gertrude reports the killing to Claudius, but she attributes it entirely to Hamlet's madness, softening the description by noting Hamlet weeps for what is done.
Claudius, however, instantly understands the lethal reality of the situation. It had been so with us, had we been there. He realizes Hamlet is not just erratic. He is a direct mortal threat.
And he knows Hamlet has to be sent away immediately, but he has to manage public opinion because, politically, Hamlet is loved of the distracted multitude.
That phrase, the distracted multitude, is so key. It shows Claudius's fear of democratic, popular unrest, even in an absolute monarchy.
The masses are easily swayed.
They judge not in their judgment, but their eyes. If Claudius were to punish Hamlet harshly, the blame would fall squarely on him. The exile has to look like a reasoned, temporary solution. Once he's alone, however, Claudius reveals the true intent behind the letters Hamlet's carrying.
A commission requiring the present death of Hamlet upon his arrival in England.
But before his forced exile, Hamlet has one final contemptuous exchange with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
He is relentlessly scornful, famously comparing Rosencrantz to a sponge.
The sponge, he explains, soaks up the king's countenance, his rewards, his authorities. But the king, when he needs the information they've gleaned, will just squeeze them dry, and the sponge shall be dry again.
Hamlet fully understands that the spy's loyalty is temporary and purely transactional. They're disposable tools.
And this political critique is immediately followed by Hamlet's last major soliloquy, triggered by his encounter with Fortinbras's army in Act 4, Scene 4. This is the moment Hamlet uses Fortinbras as a final, definitive mirror for his own failure to act.
He sees Fortinbras leading an army of thousands against Poland for a worthless tiny patch of ground. No profit but the name.
The land is so small and insignificant, yet Fortinbras risks everything for it. He's driven purely by divine ambition and honor, risking blood and treasure, even for an eggshell.
This vigorous, decisive action just shames Hamlet, the ultimate intellectual. Hamlet has cause and will and strength and means to do it.
A murdered father, an adulterous mother, a crown usurped, yet he has let all sleep, lost in rumination. Fortinbras, the man of action, forces Hamlet to an intellectual pivot point.
Hamlet resolves that his thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth. The intellectual paralysis is broken, perhaps too late, in favor of ruthless, immediate action.
And while Hamlet is being forcefully redirected toward action back in Denmark, the accidental murder of Polonius has devastating consequences. Act 4, Scene 5 introduces Ophelia's descent into madness.
Her madness is so pathetic, manifested through fragmented songs about death, betrayal, and unchaste love. She sings lines like, "He is dead and gone, lady."
She's referencing her father's death and obscure funeral, which Claudius foolishly rushed and handled in hugger-mugger or secrecy to avoid public scrutiny. The lack of noble rights for Polonius, coupled with the loss of Hamlet, drives her sanity away.
At the same time, her brother Laertes returns from France, stirring up a massive rebellion among that distracted multitude who cry, "Laertes shall be king."
Laertes is fueled by rage, demanding answers from Claudius, willing to risk damnation for his revenge. And the sight of his mad sister handing out symbolic flowers, it just solidifies his fury.
So Claudius, the master manipulator, now faces two revenge plots, Hamlet's and Laertes'. He attempts to control the situation by asserting his innocence and diverting Laertes' rage toward Hamlet.
But the political landscape changes entirely when Horatio receives the letter from Hamlet in Act 4, Scene 6, detailing his escape.
He explains his ship was boarded by pirates, thieves of mercy, and he was taken prisoner but is now safely returned to Denmark, ready to confront the king.
Which forces Claudius to accelerate his plan with the newly enraged Laertes in Act 4, Scene 7.
And they formalize their deeply cynical, redundant plot. Claudius uses Laertes' grief to secure his loyalty.
And the double plot is meticulous. Laertes agrees to kill Hamlet during a fencing match with a rapier tipped with poison. A scratch is all it takes.
If that fails, Claudius adds a backup plan, a poisoned cup of wine.
He's ensuring the present death of Hamlet through redundancy. Claudius takes no chances.
But before this final plot can be executed, Gertrude interrupts with the heartbreaking news that Ophelia is drowned.
Her death, described so lyrically falling into the stream while hanging wreaths of flowers, it highlights the tragic toll of the court's corruption and Hamlet's cruelty. And this final blow hardens Laertes' resolve and sets the stage for the inevitable violent conclusion in Act 5.
And we have to bring our deep dive to a close here, on the cusp of Act 5. By this point, the entire royal ecosystem of Denmark is corrupted. The king is a murderer, the queen is complicit, the chief counselor is dead, the heir is a calculating avenger, and his love interest is dead.
The stage is set for the total annihilation of the Danish court. And for context, the fifth act brings that bloody climax. The duel, the death of Gertrude, the mutual wounding and death of Hamlet and Laertes, Hamlet killing Claudius, and finally, the arrival of Fortinbras to claim the vacated crown.
Looking back over these 4 acts, the critical takeaway is this devastating cycle created by unchecked corruption and intellectual paralysis.
Exactly. Claudius's ruthlessness and Polonius's incessant need for surveillance created the dangerous environment. But Hamlet's failure to act decisively, based on that incredibly complex theological reservation in the prayer scene, that's the trigger for the ensuing chaos.
That hesitation leads directly to Polonius' death, Ophelia's madness, Laertes' vengeful fury,
and ultimately, the complete destruction of the regime, allowing Fortinbras to just walk in and inherit the spoils without firing a single shot. The political instability that began with the armed ghost in Act 1 is resolved, but only because the political players destroyed themselves.
Right.
Which brings us to the final provocative thought. The entire tragedy rests on Hamlet's decision to wait for a more horrid hint, a chance to damn Claudius, rather than killing him at prayer. If Hamlet had valued pragmatic, profane justice over seeking eternal damnation for his uncle, how might the subsequent fate of Denmark have shifted?
Would Fortinbras have been denied his claim?
The role of theological obsession in driving political chaos and preventing pragmatic action? That is the terrifying question the play leaves us with.
A weighty thought that proves why this profound dive into Hamlet still defines our understanding of drama, politics, and the human condition. Thank you for joining us on this exploration.
Thank you for allowing us to guide you through the sources.
If you enjoyed this detailed analysis, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, Book on a Shelf. And stay tuned for the next deep dive, where we will continue decoding classic literature for the modern mind.